Is it just me, guys, or did Ishida or one of his editors decide to troll us last week with chapter 161 by attaching that ending tag teasing us with Rize and Furuta? Because I walked into chapter 162 expecting Rize and Furuta. I wanted to know whether or not that Rize is the real Rize or a cloned Rize created by Dragon, but also dive more into the mindset of Furuta, maybe get some backstory, but also learn what his grand plan has been this entire time. We generally know what Furuta has been up to, get Kaneki turning into Dragon, and then like the end result gets Rize somehow, but what is the end goal that Furuta is after? I want to dive into that mindset, but besides that tangent and besides the fact that I was upset we didn't get that, this chapter 162, I thoroughly enjoyed. It was very well done, very emotional, and it was built upon all of the relationships that Kaneki has made over the course of the series, getting to see his friends, humans and ghouls, running to his side as he's lying on that table unconscious, just waiting for him to wake up. That right there is just awesome to see all these groups of people actually standing there by his side, not fighting, just having one common goal, making sure that Kaneki is okay. So that right there was basically the main storyline for chapter 162, but I'm really glad also that this week's latest chapter gave us some answers to some questions that were brought up in chapter 161, specifically in mind the humans turning into ghouls, and clarifying that it's all thanks to Dragon basically heightening their RC cells and giving them all R.O.S disease. I'm really glad we actually got that clarified, but then also this other notion that Kaneki was not the sole nucleus within the Dragon cognate. There are in fact multiple nuclei spread throughout Dragon throughout the multiple wards. At most, there are 23 nuclei possibly lying within Dragon. And I have a crazy ass theory, hoping it doesn't come true, but it is a crazy theory nonetheless concerning the multiple nuclei within Dragon. Anyway guys, let's start at the very beginning of chapter 162 with that opening shot within the CCG of Kaneki lying on this morgue-like table surrounded by all of his friends. We have Toka, Ure, Kimi, Hide, and Nishiki looking down at his unconscious body. He still has no arms, no legs. His body is still encased in this cognate-like shell, and Kimi is letting everybody know of the current state that Kaneki is in. So Kimi ends up running some tests on Kaneki's body just to double check and to make sure that he still has brain functionality and is still breathing on his own, which both check out. But as they dive just a little bit deeper into his body, they discover some unknown things that should not be there. Several unknown organs that they cannot identify. So this is leaving Kimi and a lot of the CCG researchers stumped on Kaneki's current state. But also, what's even more alarming is that their theory of extracting Kaneki from the Dragon cognate, making it disappear, seems not to be working because Dragon is still around and is still enveloping multiple wards. So the theory that Kaneki might have been the sole nucleus within Dragon seems to be proven wrong. There might actually be multiple nuclei within the Dragon cognate, and this is where my crazy theory, after reading this chapter multiple times, I started thinking about this, because as we're seeing from Dragon right now, besides the fact that it's turning humans into ghouls, it seems to be bringing about new life. And this is not a new concept we've seen within Tokyo Ghoul, cognate sprouting new life. But we also know that the Dragon cognate, this monstrosity, was conducted by Furuta, but also created by Dr. Kano. And Dr. Kano has been working on Shirazu's dead body, Gagi and Guki, and several other characters. And I've also been wondering when those plot points would come back up once again. So tying all of those things together, seeing these multiple wards, possibly 23 massive structures of these cognates, could possibly mean we have about 23 at the most nuclei within Dragon, and Kaneki and Rize might have just been 2 of them. So my big theory is, what if the other nuclei within Dragon are just several of the dead characters within the series, and Dragon just might possibly bring them back to life? And I do want to state this right up front. I don't want this theory to be true, but even just thinking about it, it could still be a possibility where you could have Eto, Arima, Shirazu, Gagi, and Gugi, Yoshimura could all be nuclei within this dragon Kagane, and it could just spur new life into them. Now, like I just said, I don't want that to come true because I think it will just diminish having those lives lost within the series. But thinking about Dr. Kano in this grand scheme of using Kagane for more medical purposes, and he wanted to basically halt and hinder death, it would make a lot of sense that this would bring back the dead of some past characters who we have lost. I know that it is a crazy theory, but it has like a 1% possibility of happening. I just wanted to throw that theory out there because there has to be something important with the multiple nuclei being brought up about dragons. So those are my ideas and thoughts on the multiple nuclei, but I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well. Leave your theories down in the comments below because this might be a major plot point moving forward as we are barreling towards the end of Tokyo Ghoul Re. But enough of my crazy theory, let's just get back on course and talk about the rest of this chapter. So once Kimi gets done explaining about the possibility of there being multiple nuclei within Dragon, she stops to basically reassure everybody in the room, but specifically Toka herself, just to let her know that Kimi is going to do everything that she can to save Kaneki's life because Kaneki saved her back in the day. And this was a very nice callback to the early years of Tokyo Ghoul when you had Nishiki, Toka, and Kaneki trying to rescue Kimi from the clutches of Tsukiyama. Ah, good times. And now we've reached the part of the chapter which begins to get very emotional, but also very nostalgic at the same time, because this is when Kaneki's relationships that he's built over the course of the story with humans and with ghouls starts to manifest on the pages within this chapter. And it really goes to show that Kaneki's ideology that he's been fighting for this entire time to bring humans and ghouls together is indeed possible, not only within this chapter, but we've seen it shown throughout this arc as a whole. We have Hide and Toka sitting alone in the room staring down at Kaneki's body, with Hide reassuring Toka that everything is going to be okay and that Kaneki is going to pull through. And of course, Hide leaves right after this brief conversation, which goes to show that Ishida is just trolling us by not having Hide and Kaneki within the same room while Kaneki is still not conscious yet. Ishida, I know what you're doing there. You're eventually going to have them talk, but why do you have to do this to us within this week's latest chapter? So at this point, Toka is just left alone in the room staring down at Kaneki's body, but then all the other friends that Kaneki has made start to enter the room. Nishiki shows up with his sarcastic remarks. A one-legged Hinami strolls in with Banjo and the gas mask crew to stand by Toka's side, and eventually Miza, Ayato, and Yomo eventually enter the room as well. But the best moment by far comes from Kaneki Ken's #1 fanboy himself, Shu Tsukiyama, just walking into the room while holding flowers, having to one-up everybody. Shu Tsukiyama, you are a treasure. And those are just the ghoul friends that Kaneki has made over the course of the series, because soon after that we have Almon, Akira, and Psycho walk into the room as well. And I know that many of you might even say, Almon right now is technically an artificial one-eyed ghoul, but he was human when he first met Kaneki. So you have the humans and the ghouls all in the same room together, but just having that moment with Psycho being surrounded by all of Kaneki's extended family and her just lying there on his lap, just basically saying, I am going to be here for my maman. That panel is so awesome. It just encompasses Kaneki's ideology, and it really does emphasize that he really does belong both in the human and ghoul worlds. So for the remainder of this chapter, all those characters remain in that room until Kaneki regains consciousness by the ending of this chapter. But the next section I want to dive in and talk about is that Urei and Mitsuki conversation. And I know this is going to sound like a broken record, but this is the prime example in this chapter that we've seen countless times before. Urei's character development has been phenomenal. The one character that has just been about me, promotion, 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 only relies on himself, does not rely on others. But in this chapter, he comes to the realization that he needs people in his life. He needs friends and comrades to be there for him, to get him through the times that he cannot do it alone. And he has come to this realization faster than Kaneki ever did. And Urei is putting this ideology to the test by being there for Mitsuki and pushing Mitsuki forward, because right now, Mitsuki is very hesitant to face Rize. She is realizing about all the terrible stuff she has done throughout her life, but specifically towards Kaneki and Toka. And she feels that she hasn't earned the right to be in front of Rize, so she's just going to avoid him entirely. But Urei, being the wise man that he is like, avoiding him is not your atonement, Mitsuki. You need to face Rize and tell him about the things that you've done. Otherwise, the healing will not begin. And Urei follows this up by saying, I too need to talk to Rize because I have to tell him that he was wrong. And this is a great callback to chapter 57 during the death of Shirazu, when the Black Reaper Rize came down after fighting Eto and talked to Urei. Urei, being distraught with emotion, yelling at Rize, it's like, where were you? Shirazu needed you here right now. And Rize replied with the most savage line that I know everybody remembers him delivering, where he stated to Urei, who was it that was fighting alongside him, Urei? And Urei's like, me. All losses in this world are due to a lack of ability. If you want to curse something, curse your own weakness. This ideology right here is the sole reason why Kaneki's character hasn't really changed over the course of the series. Just look at his current predicament. Armless, legless, lying on a morgue-like table unconscious as he was being extracted from Dragon by his friends. If back during the Underground arc, if he didn't rush in on his own and had backup and didn't live by these words of all losses in this world are due to a lack of ability, he would not have ended up in that situation. And back in chapter 57, he tried to push this onto Urei, but now Urei knows better. He knows that he needs to rely on other people in order to get things done, because if he did not have Mitsuki, Yonebayashi, the entire QS squad, and Kurioa by his side, he might not be where he is right now today. So this is a good character moment for Urei, but also Mitsuki as well. This entire section I absolutely love. So after the Urei and Mitsuki conversation, we in fact switch over to another conversation between Hirako talking with Ito and Ui, and Ito brings up the question on whether or not humans and ghouls will actually cease fighting after this. And Hirako talking with Ito basically states that Arima knew of this big event, this revolution or upheaval that was going to take place. There was going to be this catalyst to stop the fighting between the humans and the ghouls, and Hirako eventually thought that this is what Dragon was supposed to do, but he was in fact wrong. There is something far worse that is going to erase humans entirely, where only ghouls will remain, because humans are going to start turning into ghouls. This is going to be the main problem for the final arc. How do we stop humans turning into ghouls? Because Dragon right now is giving every single human R.O.S. disease. They're developing Kakugan black eyes, they have Kagane hard skin, and they're starting to seizure and convulse and basically turn into ghouls, and nobody knows how to cure this. Which again makes you ask the question, what is the overall grand plan of Furuta? He wanted to bring about Dragon so that way he could get to Rize, but how does this factor into it? Turning humans into ghouls. This is why I want a play-by-play of Furuta's grand scheme. I want to see the beginning, the middle, and the end of how he was able to outsmart and outpace everybody with this grand master plan to bring about Dragon. Even Marude is starting to catch on. He is looking at Dragon, he's like, well, if that is a bluff, what is the real end goal of bringing about all of this destruction and turning people into ghouls? As of this arc so far, Kimi, Hide, and Marude have been fantastic. And if this is in fact where we are going for the final arc, you know that this problem cannot be solved in 5 chapters. This is going to take a while, so we're gonna have like 20, 30, maybe even 40 more chapters until we reach a conclusion to where either humans are cured and don't have R.O.S. anymore, or everybody succumbs to R.O.S. and all that is left is ghouls. So I think it's safe to say that we're gonna have plenty more chapters of Tokyo Ghoul in the weeks to come, but the last thing I definitely want to talk about for this chapter review is, yes, by the ending of this chapter, Kaneki does in fact wake up. And I feel so bad for Toka, but relieved now all at the same time, because Toka has probably not slept this entire time. She was about to fall asleep when she heard something going on with Kaneki, and she looked up and saw that he was awake. Psycho is still lying on his lap. Kaneki's looking around, he sees Toka, he sees all of his friends asleep in the room, and he starts to cry. I really do like this moment because you got to think about this from Kaneki's perspective. When he was in his dreamlike state talking with Rize, he had no idea if he was even going to wake up or if his friends would even be there to greet him. But him waking up to the sight of seeing all of his friends waiting there by his side, waiting to make sure that he is okay, this is bringing tears to Kaneki's eyes, and he is realizing that his friends are going to be there for him no matter what, and that is a great moment to have for the ending of this week's chapter. Anyway, guys, that is my review of chapter 162 of Tokyo Ghoul, a very enjoyable and yet a very emotional chapter all at the same time. I'm still a little upset that we did not get any Rize or Furuta, but hopefully we get that in the next coming chapters to come. I have no idea, but all I know is for sure is that we are going to have plenty more chapters in the coming weeks of Tokyo Ghoul. This arc is far from done right now. I think that theory of 206 chapters might be more plausible than we initially thought. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts, theories, and speculations on this week's latest chapter. Where are we going next chapter? Are we going to continue off with Kaneki, talking with all of his friends? Or are we going to go to something else entirely? And maybe, just maybe, we will actually get Rize and Furuta next chapter. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. And if you feel like following me on Twitter, talking about Tokyo Ghoul outside of YouTube, feel free to do so, guys. I have a lot of fun talking with you guys on Twitter about the latest chapters that come out for Tokyo Ghoul, so definitely join in on the fun there. But that is going to be it, guys. Chapter 163 will be coming out next week, but until then, I'll talk with you guys later. See you later, guys.